Okay then, good afternoon to our viewers in Switzerland and good morning to our audience across Latin America. My name is Tatiana Gaspar and I'm the Managing Director of the Latin American Chamber of Commerce in Switzerland. Welcome to this webinar, the fourth one in our COVID-19 series. Today we are looking at impact, policy responses and perspectives for Latin America. I would like to introduce and warmly welcome today's guest speaker, who is joining us from Santiago, Chile, Dr. Mario Cimoli, Deputy Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. The Chamber is very honored that you, Dr. Cimoli, made time in your busy schedule to be with us today. Also, a warm welcome to a familiar face, our very own moderator and honorary ambassador of our chamber, Dr. Philippe Nell. After the formal part of the session, which will last for about 50 minutes, there will be time for questions. As usual, dear viewers, you can submit your questions in writing. If I recognize you, I will say from which organization you are. Be aware that we are recording this webinar. If you are concerned about data protection, you can submit your question anonymously. Now, without further delay, let's start, and I hand over to you, Philippe.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. It is a great pleasure for me to be back today with the webinar series of the Latin American Chamber of Commerce in Switzerland. This session complements very well the two first webinars that I chaired on COVID-19, namely the first one on the lessons for governance to be learned in Latin America, and the second one on the impacts of COVID-19 on Swiss companies operating in Latin America. Today, we are adding a new flagship to our series by taking a look at the situation in Latin America with our distinguished guest, Dr. Mario Cimoli, Deputy Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Dr. Cimoli also co-chairs a task force at Columbia University with Professor Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel Prize laureate. I also welcome our audience from Latin America and Switzerland, as well as several directors of bilateral Chamber of Commerce, Switzerland, Latin America, all across Latin America, and several ambassadors representing Latin American countries in Switzerland. We are very, very pleased to have all of you with us today. Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that Latin America is often compared to Asia. I'll just have a few quick-off remarks. Both Asia and Latin America performed very differently during the past 60 years. Between 1960 and 2017, Latin America's per capita income increased from 20% to 24% of US per capita income. During the same period, Asia's per capita income increased from 11% to 58% of US per capita income. The difference is simply huge. The immediate question is, how could such a big difference occur between two developing regions in the world? Parts of the answer are the development strategies of both regions, import substitution and export of natural resources for Latin America on one hand, and export promotion of manufactured products for Asia, erratic fluctuation of commodity prices, debt crisis in Latin America, framework conditions in Asia more favorable to foreign investors, and also the creation of champions by governments capable to compete on world markets in Asia. I have been in Latin America on various assignments since 1982. There is no doubt that the continent has made significant progress over the years. This can be seen with new infrastructure, better health coverage for the entire population, and a sharp reduction in poverty through economic growth and redistribution programs. However, Today, the majority of the population remains in the informal sector. This represents a very serious weakness in the fight against COVID-19, where social distancing is essential to prevent the diffusion of the virus. Without a sufficient social security net and with very limited health coverage, you come up to such situations as a young mother writing me a few days ago from a neighborhood in Lima. She was saying, the virus is everywhere. Everyone is going out. We are more afraid of hunger than of the virus. In a large suburb of Lima, families suffering from hunger hang white flags on a pole in front of their home. The number of flags increases daily. The data on the virus still shows a progression in several countries. Today at 3 p.m., Brazil reports 1.2 million cases with 53,900 casualties. Peru comes second in cases, with Chile with more than 250,000 cases, 8,500 casualties for Peru, and more than 4,700 for Chile. Mexico reports a large number of casualties, 24,000, and more about 200,000 cases. The situation is serious. How can Latin America avoid losing 20 years of social development? Dr. Mario Cimoli will address this issue now in 3 parts. He will first draw a diagnostic of the region. Second, he will look at the policy responses by Latin American countries. And finally, he will look at the perspectives. Dr. Cimoli, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Philippe, Diana. Thank you very much, all of you. I have a presentation that Philippe said is going to divide in 3 parts. I want to be very clear with all of you. The situation is very complex, how Philippe said. Latin America is becoming one of the center of evolution of the pandemic. That is clearly a situation that put the region at the light of a difficult situation, and on the other side is coming the region for a situation that was very difficult also 3 or 4 years before what this pandemic crisis arrived. And in that sense, for me, I want to be very honest with all of you and tell that there is not clearly evaluation, because there is a lot of uncertainty. We have to understand at the beginning, and I want to put the presentation, if you give me the first part. I don't know if you can see the presentation. I want to put clearly to, okay. Okay, and if you want to see this presentation, what clearly, I don't know if you can see me, but it's a difficult crisis, because it's a process that I want to be very, very clear. One of the most important pandemic crises, for example, in Europe, for the crisis of the 300, okay, that was more than 700 years before, was in the period of a Europe that was 100 years of crisis, pandemic, and so on. Other one was the Spanish one. And this one is coming in a context that is more globalized, with different technology, with different situation, with countries taking a position and large, huge communication. What is this crisis is not clear to understand many of the elements. We can interpret what's happened. We can make a diagnosis. We can establish which are the main principles and policies, but to have clearly what is going to be the evolution, if some people say you that if these people is an economist, worse and worse. Be careful about that. It's going to be a crisis that is going to be very complex to solve it, is not clear. And I want to begin with the first slide with that. This crisis is a crisis at the global context that is similar to other crises. It's similar to the crisis of the 30s. It's similar to the process of the breakdown of the economy during the First World War. The First World War in 1914, the decreasing of the product was high. 1914, in the 30s, and today. Our crisis that has a structural condition and it has an implication of the real sector that really is very important. This is the first point. It's not clear because the war today, from the war in the 30s, from the war in the 14, is completely different. There is other technology. There is ICT technology. To send a message in the First World War is you have to send with a telegraph. Today everything is connected. It's different. Today you have products that are intangible, not tangible. It's a process. It's complete. Production, how production is, how the firm is organized, how the life plant of the global value chain are organized is completely different. And that is important to understand that this crisis is arriving in a context historically different from the others. It's not easy to understand because there is new variables that we can understand deeply to have a clear scenario of what's coming up. We try to do that, but we want to be very honest with you. Not clearly, it's going to be what we say, what is going to be the evolution of the process. That is important. Second one, we arrive in the global situation with this condition that the global trade, the global growth, the global process and tension, political and technological, from the United States, China, Europe, China, is coming. It has a background process of this crisis that was established 4 or 5 years ago. And many people call that the deglobalization process. Now, this crisis arrived in the uncertainty, difficult context at the global level with tension in trade, in growth, inequality, and technology. Now, this is the process we have in our mind. This is arriving in a particular process. Now, have a clearly the definition of future scenarios is difficult, really. And I want to put this clearly to be very honest with all of you. The interpretation that's coming out is on Latin America. And I want to begin with this figure that I think is an important figure, and I want to be very clear on that. This is an impact, what we call a domino process at the global level, arriving from China, arriving at Milan, Italy, France, Spain, Europe, United States, Latin America, and began to close in China, close Europe, close United States, close Latin America. And the effect coming back to the world economy today is not clearly, but it's this dominant processes is very complex to understand. And today, at the end of the processes, we have in the region a processes in the production system that is closer firms. We don't have demand, and we have to maintain the social context, the more distance that we can do, because there is a level of diffusion of the contagions that is really very high. Now, arriving to here, domino process, and how this arrive in the region. In this process that arrive in the region, in which condition we find the region when all of these processes arrive here. And I want to be very clear on that. Health impact, containment measures, contraction of the global demand, and here we have this demand and supply crisis that we want to explain because many people don't put clearly what's happening with the supply and demand processes. The region, how many other parts in the world, suspension of production line, falling international trade, investment contraction, suspension of internal production activity. And how this process find the region with important characteristics. This is not, when we want to analyze how the economies did and are doing many times, they put the economic model and think that the world behaves as the economic model that they have in their mind. But it's not like that. America Latina has a specific condition. I want to define at least 5 conditions that are very important that you have in your mind. The first one is we have an insufficient and fragmented welfare system. The production structure isn't locked in. We have diversification processes very not well diffused. Production is very concentrated many times in primary activities. There are a lot of production activity and informal activities. We have external constraints because we are not Europe, we don't have the central bank, we are not Switzerland, we are not America, that they have those banks that have the capability to sustain, to have the supply of the money resources necessary to support the production processes. Structural inequality, you know that this region is the region that had very high level of inequality and high economy. We have a very large diffuses informality. These are 5 structural conditions that for us is very important to understand that. And I want to explain one point, Philippe, is I have the moment. When you think of Latin America and you arrive here, and you're in Switzerland, okay, and you want to arrive to the people that have to interrupt the jobs, you know, can go to the firms. You do have to arrive within, have Switzerland did, have Italy did, have many countries did, and you have to income to these people. You clearly have the welfare system and ICT system where you know the people who are, where they are, which quantity of resources they need. But when you think in Latin America, you have more than 40 or 50% of the population that is in informal sector. What means to be in informal sector? People is not in informal sector because they are bad, because they don't want to pay taxes. It's because the level of production activity has so low productivity, is so badly modernized that these people need to go outside of the street and to have resources every day because they have to put these resources in the family on the table. They have to do that. And the informal activity, it's very difficult to achieve these people. It's not easy to say, you need this income, I transfer you this income, because they don't have a current account. And you want to transmit a format model that the people can achieve this money because you put on the ICT plant, the people don't have a good ICT, and you want to educate this family and the student go to the public sector with not high technology. That is informal activity. And when you arrive in this region, you have a lot of people in this informal activity. And the crisis shows clearly what is this weakness of the region. You know, that is very important because if we think everything at the same level, please, I came from Europe and I can say we don't want to be Eurocentric in this sense. We have to rethink differently this process. I want to be, many times I'm not politically correct, but I think Philippe tell me you have to do very clear this seminar in that sense. And I think these 5 conditions are very important. And I want to okay. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, you have to look in. You have the presentation.
No, Mario, we cannot see your presentation.
Okay. Now, and this has an enormous impact because you have an enormous impact on trade, okay, and growth. But on trade is clearly what's happening in the region that import and export had decreases on both sides, you know, and clearly what's happening in this context is that the region, one of the channels for growth that is export, one of the channels to absorb capital goods, to absorb, for example, to absorb the medicines, to absorb the protocols, to absorb the sanitary machineries that you need, is very difficult because there is a constriction, import has decreased and export has decreased. But this is happening around the world because the global value chain has decreased in the extension. They have many times, this has been reducing in terms of activity. And this is clearly one condition that is difficult. And the other point that is important, I want to stop it here, this affected because there is different sectors as has been not only import and export, but firms. I want to stop a little bit on firms. The sector that has affected clearly, there is tourism, trade, wholesale trade, goods repairs, hotel and restaurant, transportation, construction, and so on. But look at the numbers that you have in the table there. Look at the number there. And you know that the very affected firm and the micro firms, and this is the formal firm, because you have a huge number similar to this one that are the micro firm and informal activity. What is more affecting the region is micro firms and informal activities, and micro firms and informal activity. And look the number that you have there. You have the number that is very affected, quite a 7 million firms. You can understand what is the impact of this unemployment and poverty that you are looking for to see. We are looking to show you in the next slide. But clearly, this is an enormous impact, and we have. And tourism is affecting a lot of the firms, but the small structure of a small and medium firm related to that. Now, the impact is formal firms in the micro formal firms and micro firms that many times is 1 or 2 persons and informal activity. This is going to be an expanded activity. And you can ask me why that's happened. It's because there is the production structure of the region has showing its poverty is difficulty, because it's a region with low productivity, low diversification, low introduction of technology, and we have stars in our production. So there is a lot of stars, but a large part of production activity is a production activity that we call with a structural fail condition that are related with this small and medium firm with low activity. And that is the impact. That is very difficult, because this process of production is related also at the capability to achieve the people in small and medium firms and micro firms, informal and formal activity. Employment increase, more or less about, we are changing unemployment is going to add to these people a delta that is going to be quite 12 million persons. That is a large number. And this is estimated at the growth rate that is -5%. But if you put here that the growth rate is going to be probably about 8 or 7, this unemployment rate is going to be. But where came this employment rate? This employment rate came here, you can see, from formal sector, different sectors, and informal activity. Clearly is the point. And this is the news. We suppose and we estimated that the poverty is going to increase a lot in the region. It's coming the last 10 years where there was a reduction of poverty, reduction of inequality, but at the end of the last 5 years, this process was not so virtuous as how we look for. But this process is becoming more and more difficult today, because this impact and the weak condition in terms of inequality, production structure, and so on, is increasing the number of poverty. We estimated that more than 30 million people is going to go in poverty. And we need clearly to rethink about fiscal policy and public expenditure. This clearly is one of the most important points, and tax evasion in the region is great, and we need to rethink about fiscal policy and employment and production structure. This is the diagnosis that, really honestly, my friend, is not a good diagnosis, because the condition of the region is difficult. We are right with a structural deficit, and these structural deficits are going to amplify what is the impact of this crisis. And we have to rethink about these policies that we need. Philippe, stop here for the first part, and if you want, we can prepare in the second part. Okay, I stop here.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Mario. I think you gave us a very realistic diagnosis of today's situation in Latin America. We see that trade is going to fall significantly. We see that there are some structural deficits. We see that you have emphasized strongly on the aspect of informality of the society, which is very difficult because of low productivity to remedy to. Now, already between 2014 and 2019, Latin America had a low growth, 0.4%, mainly impacted by Brazil and Mexico, which are very large countries and therefore play a big role into the average. The Pacific Alliance average, like Peru and Chile and Colombia, had better growth rate, Dominican Republic, also Paraguay, also Uruguay. Can we also, nevertheless, have in the diagnostic we are doing, where do you see the nuances in this diagnostic when you look at the Latin American map?
Mm-hmm. That is a very good question. We have the problem, we have the diagnosis, which are the policies that countries are implemented. What ECLAC think that we have to be the policy? This policy have to be or transformed or supported or have to be implemented and diffused. And I want to share with you, if I can, I want to share with you, if I can, some summarizing of the, just a moment, from the current slide. That's great. Perfect. You can see it, okay?
Yes.
If you want to see it, and if you look to look at the region clearly, we have to say, and that is good for the region, that many of the countries in the region introduce a battery of policy really diffused and amplified. That is important. And many of the countries in the region introduce not only announced policy, but they introduce a real policy. And there is countries that has introduced a lot of different policies supporting income, supporting food, supporting ICT, supporting in some parts firms, and you can see, have you said before, that the introduction of the policy arrived in a context where the last 4 years of the region were the very low growth, you know. They don't have this fiscal expansion, they don't have this fiscal space to do that, but they make an effort. We have to recognize that the region make an enormous effort. Clearly, something has to be rethinking. Clearly, something are not policies that have the deepness that is needed. It have happened in Europe today. We have debating in Italy that I know, in Spain that I know, that we have problems in policy, a lot of problems. And that sense is happening also in the region. But if you do look at the battery of the policy, there is policy. And I want to put here clearly what are the main important policy. Restriction and measure on travel and monitoring, that is one. Social distancing and total or partial quarantines in many of the countries. Here there is a debate, there is a trade-off, because if you think a part of informal, if you think that part of people need to have the income every day, if you think that it's difficult for the state to achieve these people, you have to understand that there is more tension in this trade-off of open the economy and close the economy, more than other economies that have social welfare that has to be well building up, okay? Here is different. You think about that. It's not become many, this tension, you can see this tension in the political debate, because there is a pressure of lot of the society because they need the income. It is difficult for the state to achieve them, and the resources you don't have. It's difficult to achieve the resources of the global system because all of the people are debating that, but the resources that arrive are very low. That is the debate. That thing that partial quarantines, telework and telecommunication with enormous asymmetry that the people can achieve this, and we can see that. To improve the health sector capacity, protection of working and income, temporary support of poorest and informed, credit and support and the company. I think there is a battery of policy really important. And we can see that, and we define different type of policy. That is very useful. ECLAC have an observatory. If you can go in ECLAC, we have an observatory, and you can look there, the presentation of our secretary, Alicia Bárcena, that she wanted to be here, but for her it was impossible, and she sent the regard to all of you. But there is a presentation, and you can look that Alicia did about the measure that it clearly can give to you a deeply analysis of that, and you can have a lot of information. Here is only summarized. If you are very interested, go to the observatory, look the presentation that we did and Alicia did, and clearly you can see there all of these points. Cash transfer, inter-kind transfer, provision of basic services, social protection for formal work, other direct support, and there is a package of policies that really are important. And the dimension of that is really important, and we think there is diversity about countries. But however, there is an estimation of, I think today is more than 1.5, because this figure, we are recalculating these figures, and we are re-estimating all of this, and we know that this number of 0.7 has increased recently a lot in many countries. And there is policy in different sectors. Reduction of postponement of state payment, reduction of interest rate, health protocol, regulatory change and facilitation of operation of companies, adjustment of internal logistics system. This of logistics system is a very crucial one, because people, it's important that food and the people can achieve all of the needed to survive, because informal activity, if you can have income, you need to achieve the resources, and you need food, and you have to guarantee that the transportation system and the availability of food has to be put on the table. That is crucial one, it is important one. And I want to put here the school programs, and here in this point I want to make a point on this last figure that I showed before. It's important, for example, to arrive with food at schools, because many of these informal activity people, the only lunch that the scholars has in this economy came from the schools, and you need that the school have to be supported on that, and you need transfer, production, and school. That is very important. Countries understood, many of the Ministry of Social Policy understood immediately that it's important to sustain school, to sustain this informal activity where the scholars go to the school, go back to the home, the father is informal, don't have the income, and you need to support this food and this needed in the school. But on the other side, this school don't have the instrument and ICT to support the education. You know, you can understand that there is the difficulty. The government understood that, but we understand on the other side that this student is supporting food. When they go back to home, they don't have the capability on ICT to get connected, the mother, the father, the child, and we can connect one person, and many times it's the father when can be connected, if the job can be connected. You know, this crisis put clearly the difficulty of the welfare system, okay? But the welfare system is food, achievement of the rights, but at the same time, an ICT system where everybody have the capability. And I want to put clearly, give me a moment, because clearly the policies, there is an enormous coordination on that policy, and there is sectoral measures that are very, very important. Credit for the film, support for the film. Also in this region, the main target is micro, small, and medium film, but they are worried also for the large film. Take the case of different large film, where we are connecting part of the small and medium film informal activity. We have a package of policy to the small firms, medium firms, and large firms. We are going to present all of the measures. We are going to present the impact on production and sectoral system on the July 2 of July. We are going to launch in our observatory the situation of diagnosis of the production system in Latin America and measure. Maria can send to you all of the information about this meeting to all of you, because there we are going to have all of the fresh information to production system and production structure. But clearly there is a package of measure very, very important. And ICT, I want to go back to ICT. This crisis put clearly on the table, this crisis put clearly that our ICT system could be in the infrastructure, on the side of the infrastructure, could be a more or less have some capabilities, but the demand from population is completely unequal, because can achieve the ICT system with great property, with high capability, only the middle and high income. The other part of population has an enormous problem because they can achieve, because they can demand that, because they don't have the instrument, because the infrastructure is poor, because you can pay a large man to achieve, for example, that where your mother, your father, everybody can achieve, use different systems. We are using some today, and you are using some, you need a system that has to be very important, very strongly, and you can imagine this can be used only for a small part of population. The large part of population has only the mobile cell, and with the mobile cell you can use that. And you know, there is informal, excluding people, ICT. All of them created a locking system where inequality, that is our worry, is increasing. The result of the decreases can be and here there is the proposal of ECLAC, and I want to stop a little bit on that for you, and I stop it here for this second part. We need, that is very important, to introduce a basic emergency income equivalent to a poverty line in ECLAC. That is important, because you have to arrive to all of this part of population and people where income is very difficult to move the machine to generated income. It's difficult to the formal sector. You can imagine for the informal one is more difficult. You can imagine with families that are emerging, how is informal family from education, ICT, you need to arrive on that. That is really important. That is really important. We need at least for 6 months. And many countries are introducing that. We need fiscal policy. And probably the region have to rethink about the role of the central bank. I don't want to, this could be a seminar, completely seminar on that, but we need to support not only income, but to support firms, because in the medium term, you can maintain for the 10 years with the, because if you don't have employment, if you don't have production activity, if your productivity doesn't increase, it's difficult to maintain that. We need to create more equality, sustainability system. And in this context, where firms are recomposing, restructuring, lay out the plan, the technology, everything, we need to create incentive, because firms need to have more energy, more clean energy, more process to create a circular process of production, to introduce more mobilization and cars in the city. We need to be active in policy in this moment, not to wait that the crisis is finished today, because firms and production systems are moving today. And we need to rethink about the welfare state, the welfare system. ECLAC, when we say to create a welfare system, we have clearly that the welfare system needs a production system that has to be efficient, with the productivity, with capability. That both sides have to be developed together, and promote regional integration. That is very important. The scale of the regional integration is thing. Now, Philippe, I stop here with this second part, and I give the floor to you, if I can do that.
Thank you very much. I think you showed us here the measures that Latin American countries have been taken. What we should mention here is that we see a very strong reaction from the government, great efforts to address this crisis. And also, as we saw from your presentation, the action is on several fronts, and several fronts at the same time. Now, all this require resources. And as you also said earlier, there is a there were already some structural deficits before coming into 2020, and therefore this is likely to be exacerbated. Now we do not know how long this will go, but what we know certainly is that these various food programs might need to be extended, might need to be further supported for the populations. So my question to you is that several countries have addressed to the IMF, to the World Bank, also could be helping the Corporate Andina de Fomento and also the Inter-American Development Bank. So how do you see now, based on the need of resources and also the role that these international institutions could play in order to help countries in Latin America to cross the bridge? And once we'll be on the other side, then we can see what must be rebuilt, how it can be rebuilt, and what should be the priorities, so that the continent would be in a stronger position whenever something will come. I would finally add also that here in Europe, and also we see it also in the United States, there is a very strong debate on the impact of lockdown, and also on the strong need and desire to open up the economies, the risk by opening up, and also of the economic damages it does. And the economic damages in Switzerland are also very, very significant, similar to what we saw on your slides. Many micro enterprises in services sector, tourism and leisure and restaurant and so on and so forth, are very, very strongly affected, and very, very small business. So I also believe that each one on each side of the Atlantic and the Pacific can learn also from the others in how to address that. But when we see the urgency and the seriousness of the problem, because of lacking a social security net in Latin America, then we have to contend that some super support now is just going to be necessary, and perhaps also very soon. So what could you say about that?
It's difficult. If I have the answer of all of these questions, Philippe, you prepare very well this question. I think it's very difficult to answer. I will try to do my best. I want to be very honest on that. And I want to begin. I want to begin about the role of the different multilateral institution and financing institution. I want to do. I have only one slide for this part, and I want to answer to you because the question is very important. And you know, if you can imagine everything, every country go to IMF, every country go to World Bank, every country moving to have resources. It's clear. Also the case of Chile. Chile was a country that, in terms of macro stability, behaves relatively well, and it's not a problem. Go to the IMF to have an access to the credits. That is clearly that's happening in all of the economy. But the resources that the economy, the global economy, have to support, you know, the dimension of the countries needed there is not enough. Okay, there is not enough. This is the first problem. Also, IMF, it seems to be a lot of resources, but it's not so. It's not so large, so diffuse. That is important to access. It's important to create it more facilitation of that. UN is moving on that. UN is moving an important group on debts and multilateral organization to support countries' resources. That is clearly financing development. That is clearly we are moving on that. But the quantity of resources is difficult. Also, if the resources arrive at the same condition that you had before the crisis, where you have to behave in certain ways, you are probably exploded your social situation. You can give the credit in the same condition that you saw before of this crisis. You have to rethink at the condition of the credit. That is a structural way, completely different. If you want to rethink it the same way, you are creating poverty, destruction on this country. You have to rethink at the way with the conditionality of this. The resources is not so hard. We have to rethink at the conditionality, and we have to rethink at the role of the macro policy in each country, because sometimes, in this condition, if you move, how was the orthodox economy, if you're thinking about the fiscal deficit, you want to leave the people dead? No, you want to serve the people. That is the first point. If you have to expand, you have to expand. You have to use resources. If the central bank have to have an intervention on that, the central bank have to have an intervention. It is a new, different way to behave. The central bank is not the different way that was 30 years before. The only problem was the target inflation processes to maintain inflation. Now inflation doesn't hit because the people don't consume, don't have demand, and don't have production. Don't worry about prices so much. In certain sectors, yes, but think about the new role. And you need more resources, more flexibility, and you need to change the domestic policy of each country. That is really important. And also that's it thinking, because you think, Philippe, at the resources that the Bank of Switzerland put on the table and the resources of the European Central Bank put on the table. Come on, it's enormous. And the Latin American countries have to gas to these countries because we have to rethink. Because if we don't rethink that, it's probably we have to go in an enormous tension on trade and political and protectionism. We need to rethink about that. I think there are three variables. The amount have to increase. Probably different strong economy have Europe and the United States have to support IMF with their structure to have credits, more flexibility, but also to change the domestic policy, to rethink the way to change the domestic policy. That is a crucial point. And I want to put one figure that I think is important to think about that. Why I telling to you these things? Because I want to stop in this figure. I don't have more, because this figure has to do with the Agenda 2030. In this condition, I'm showing why it's going to be so difficult to achieve of the goals that we have there. But if we need not only to achieve that, because it's the Agenda 2030 maintain, it has to be the horizon, have to be the way to build up a multilateralism, globalization that is more fair with poor people and inequality, And we have to rethink about, but the conditions are so strong in terms of growth, unemployment, informality, poverty, and inequality, that we need to operate immediately with policy. What you said about the credits and the debt is important. We need to expand the amount of resources for credits, and the country have to increase debts, can do that. I don't know if to propose the moratoria. Some countries need the moratoria. G20 put on the table that. The conclusions are not well decided, but there is a debate on that. And we need to rethink about the flexibilization of this credit, and we need a change in domestic product. But what is important to understand is that this crisis, if you can see, every time that we have a crisis, to recover in our social side takes the double of the time, or the 3 times the times. If you have it's probably to achieve the level of poverty, equality, and so on that we are creating in this crisis, we need another 10 years. You can imagine the last 25 years that you had before was the debt crisis. You take 25 years to take the position before. Now, if we don't move very urgently at the global system, and that's why this is going to be a condition and instability in the world. More that I think is very important, and for me it's the first, the moral and ethical problem. But you know, you are going to create instability in production, instability in resources, instability on political things. That is very important to rethink this process and to find a more fair process of trade organization. We need a global organization of trade that has to be reformed, has to be with a more participation, have to be rethinking about that. This is not the way to close it, to be everything protectionist. And I think that is going to be another side. You know, the debate what is today in Europe, it will be in the United States. Many of the countries are thinking about to create their own industry, the industry to offer products that are very important in certain conditions, for example, products like sanitary products and so on. The countries are rebuilding an industrialization process. They want to have global value chain, more shorter global value chain. Countries are moving completely different in this context. And now, and you have a cocktail, you know, it's called the cocktail that could be rethinking together. We can think only on debts. We have to think and trade. We have to think an opportunity to trade. And there is another important thing. And I want to go to things. I think, sorry, I have to say, it's important that, for example, one of the problems that the region has in this country was to have the supply of material for the crisis, okay? Medicines, mechanical instruments, and so on. And the region lost a lot of the pharmaceutical industry. The region have to rebuild that, because many times when the crisis arrived, every country take for themselves what are these resources, these products. It was difficult to achieve that. And the only way that you have these products was to call that China send this person. You know, China send that product. We have to rethink about the industrialization of these countries also, and the integration of the country. It's very important to follow an industrialization, have integration. And I think about Switzerland, I want to say, we have to rethink also on the global, I want to be very honest, about the intellectual property. Intellectual property is an issue. And to rethink about how build up the process of foreign direct investment, creation, capability, trade, and to rethink about the intellectual property. Because when we have a pandemic of this dimension, with this process, you know, there is condition also that have to be changed, because it has important to change that. I think that is a process that we need a debate about trade, we need a debate about intellectual property, we need a debate about the global value chain, we need a debate about global chains and protection, we need a debate about the instrument to support financial resources for country for development. It's a new way, rethinking every time. If each country continues to think in itself, if we don't think together at this process, all of this crisis is going to be to solve it, taking many years. It's going to affect the region, and the region could be part of this instability. I put in only the issues in instability because I think the first for ECLAC is the moral, ethical distribution, income. But clear also instability is going to be in another point. And I want to close that is the way of recovering. In this context, countries are rethinking completely the industrial, have to rethink. Latin America has to go back an industrial and technological policy, okay? Have to rethink about, to have industry is important. Have to rethink about alliance with Switzerland, with the industry in the world, to create capabilities important. Because we need industry, we need employment, we need people working in different type of firms. That is crucial. This process need to be thinking about the sustainability, to think about the what we call the big push, the green roadmap, okay? Because when firms are restructuring production process that happen in Europe and the United States, many of the firms are restructuring in terms of efficiency, taking process more green, and so on and so on. And the region need this industrial policy. In this context, to discuss, to debate, with Switzerland, with European countries, with other countries, is crucially important. It has to be a windows opportunity. I want to say to you, thanks for inviting me here. And for ECLAC and my secretary, Alicia Barson, it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Maria also, but it's important. And this is a part of the dialogue. Not if country by itself is coming out. All together is coming out. It's only the way.
No, I think you made a very good point. Thank you very much. Referring to intellectual property, I can tell you that there have been some discussions already here and also in other countries, which are important research centers and also producers of medicines, in the sense that as soon as a vaccine would be found for COVID-19 or some medicine, they will be made immediately available all around the world. So there's not going to be the kind of issues we have had in the past with important pandemics or important sicknesses and the availability of medicine. And I think based on all what I hear from you, what I think is really missing now is maybe what you are doing as ECLAC for Latin America. I think this should be done for the whole world. We should have a world conference on that. And we should not have countries such as now, for instance, the United States announcing again new sanctions against the European Union by increasing significantly tariffs on 2-3 billion of imports. I believe that the stakes are too high now. The issues are elsewhere, and all the countries should focus on this huge challenge. But we can't solve it alone. Nothing can be solved alone, neither the virus, neither also then the recovery, so that it will be by joining forces. I think we could take a few questions now from the audience, as a few have come, and I will leave Tatiana to mention the questions. Tatiana, back to you, Tatiana.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Mario. We have indeed a few questions. One has been in the chat section, I think the first one from Mark Untersander. What does inclusion in global trade exactly mean in your eyes?
I don't know if you want, I give the answer now.
Yes, please.
Tatiana? Okay. Now, I think it's difficult. What is clearly is we have to rethink about the global trade regulation. We have to rethink about that, because, you know, what is global trade has to give the possibility for the less developed countries to achieve markets in other regions, to achieve technologies from other regions. We have to understand, but to make more probably control the difference between developed and less developed countries, to combine the process of the necessity for less developed countries to achieve more markets, intellectual property and so on. But, for example, take the case of debate of sustainability today. Europe is debating about sustainability, okay? They said, we want to create a green policy economy. And I said, when I go back from here, I'm going to live in Europe. I say, perfect, great. But the condition that we have in the world, environmental processes today, is also the result of the industrialization of Europe. You know, and when we think about the industrialization of Latin America, we need to think about this historical debt and how we try to compensate that. This is part of the global trade system that came out with ethical and fair play. Because if I tell to, for example, to the country, okay, you know, you have to introduce sustainable, we say, okay, perfect. But we don't give you any intellectual property because intellectual property is mine. But I have industrialized, destroying the environmental condition before. You know, that is to rethink also this condition, the world trade processes. Also when country is not fair. for example, to put sanitary condition, trade condition, giving to the country according to their level of development, the capability to access to market. Have to rethinking about that. We have to put countries together because we are not eliminating trade, but we need a multilateral debate because country by country it is becoming only the reason of the more stronger country, and we need to have and to put on this table also the less developed countries. No.
Sorry, I was on mute. Let's take the next question from Janet Villanueva. What is going to be the international cooperation that's going out of Peru, especially the Swiss cooperation? The inequality increased more.
Honestly, I don't know the case specifically, but I think cooperation, you are putting all of the question very polemic. I want to try to answer very polemic because if you don't have, I think we have to rethink about cooperation also. For example, most of the Latin American countries are middle-income countries. They don't have right to access to cooperation. But when you have middle-income country with this production social structure that have so large vulnerability, it's very difficult. If you have an impact, that the impact of this crisis, probably this country, many parts of population go back to poverty, how we said and how we saw that, and many parts of the population are destroying industrial capability. Vulnerability of this country is very strong. Cooperation have to be rethinking. That is the point. Honestly, cooperation is not, I give you some resources because I feel well if I give you the resources. Cooperation have to be the debate between the countries that the recipes and the countries that give the resources, putting in a more long-term understanding also for middle-income countries the vulnerability, and to rethink also, because I can give a lot of cooperation to you, but if I don't open my markets, the cooperation remains the cooperation, is vulnerable also the cooperation. We need cooperation, market, industrial cooperation, intellectual property, and technological cooperation. Only a package like that, cooperation is going to free up the important result.
Yeah, I can add that Switzerland has had some important cooperation programs all around the world and also in Latin America. And we have been contributing to some regions increasing their income levels, in particular in the rural areas, in the Andes, in Peru and in Ecuador, for instance. But also what we have experienced is that at the end of the day, these are the countries which are there, which set up their own policies. And therefore, for the future, the policy effort will be essential so that progress will be made. And here we talk in terms of education, in terms of health, as the basic fundamentals in order to move forward. Back to you, Tatiana.
Okay, let's see the next question from an anonymous viewer. Does Mr. Cimoli have any figures or measurements about Venezuela in the framework of COVID-19? What is the situation of the country in comparison with the region?
Thank you very much for the question. I think the situation in terms of growth and social situation is complex. We know that is not discovered this one. It's clearly that here there is a complex situation, but what is important in this context is to have a multilateral action where the resources or cooperation or flows of products can arrive to the country. That is very important. You can block resources to the countries. That is, in this context, is a problem, because if you don't understand that in this difficult situation, to open up the economy, to open up the vision of the global economy to support countries in difficulty on trade, conditionality, and so on, is going to be worse and worse and worse. In that question, is clearly in terms of growth. You can look the statistic of ECLAC about different countries. There, everything is reflected there. It's not closed information. But what I want to say, where you have more difficulty, more cooperation you need. When you have difficult situation in trade, you need more cooperation on that. This is our view. In this context, it's difficult to strain the conditionality, because the only thing that is creating that is more difficulty, more penalties, and more so on. That is the way to rethink about that. And the region had to go through the new process of reindustrialization and cooperation and the regional level.
Another, or the same anonymous viewer has another question. Countries have lost much of money and the recovery will be very expensive. Who will provide the financial resources therefore?
Oh, of course, the resources. That is an important debate, because if I say that I'm going to have a problem of resources in the future, and for example, I think that if my view is that in the future I'm going to have problem of constrained resources, fiscal debts, and I said, I thinking in this way the economy, at the least it's better to do nothing. If the people dead, the people dead, you know. If the economy is not sustained, the economy is not sustained. I think in this context, you have to expand. I don't say that only ECLAC. The ECLAC say that, every people know that, but the leader of the IMF say that the important at the moment is expand, because you need to support people, and for them that is important. I think we have to rethink the way have the intervention of monetary fiscal policy. We need fiscal policy, and sometimes if you have the constraints at the global level of resources, if you have rigidity to access to resources, if you have to recovering process that is going to take many years, probably you have to rethink of the role that is playing the central bank and the fiscal policy. Sometimes countries have to have the resources that the central bank has to support, because in that case, if you don't have a fiscal expansionary policy, your situation is going to be worse and worse. I said before, this is the different way to rethink the intervention in the economy. We can rethink in the ways. It's not inflation, it's not expenditure. Of course, you have to take in your hand all of the recipe that you expenditure, because it's a transparent, it's accountability. But if you to arrive at informal people, you have to arrive. If you have to sustain the industrial sector, you have to sustain. You can imagine if you maintain adjustment policy in this context was going to be the impact moral and ethic in terms of people, but also in terms of political and social instability. Think about what's happened in Chile in October. It was the country that showed a very important rate of growth in the last 20 years. You can rethink, you know, I think what the people is telling about Europe. In Europe, every country is waiting about what's happening in Europe in September. That is true, because all of them know that when you go back on September, something is going to happen in Europe. That is crazy. If you think that in Europe, you can imagine what's happening in Latin America. You need to rethink about policy. That is the way that I think the economists many times repeat what the same they said in the last 20 years. And you have to be austerity. One of the problems for me in Europe is the austerity. What I want to say, I am very good friend of many of the economists there, but this austerity produced what Europe, the answer of Europe was very slow, but austerity in this moment is not the way to rethink about that. Of course, the potentiality that Latin America country has comparing with Europe, the United States, and the other countries completely different. And the reason we have to rethink, not all of the countries have the same fiscal space, but we have completely to rethink about the way to introduce that. I want to say that we need also the industrial sector that create employment, efficiency, and productivity. Because in the long term, if we don't have that, nothing of the policies can be sustainable.
I mean, just I want to add that indeed, in the past, we also had some very difficult issues which could be solved also financially if we think about the Mexican crisis and the Brady bonds. So that there ought to be some solutions, but they will have to be designed at the international level by the largest creditor countries. But at the end of the day, it will not be possible for the world and also for the countries which has higher living standards not to bring back Latin America and other continents who now face these big difficulties, because at the end of the day, we are all interdependent. And if Latin America does well, we also do well, and we know that very well. So we will have to be imaginative and creative, and the work should be undertaken now extremely soon, if not yet, at the largest institutions. Thank you. Back to you.
I can make a comment, because what Philippe said, I agree with him completely. Don't think that this is a similar crisis to the other. Eh? This is a crisis that, I want to be, if you think this is like a Second World War or the First World War, but the only thing that you can see here is the building that they have destroyed in the city, and the bomb arrived, but the destruction there is there in terms of capability, resources, and things. Think about that. It's an invisible bomb, You don't see the bomb, you don't see the building that are destroyed, but you can see that everything that is behind it is destroyed, But that is the difference of this war. It's a catastrophe, but it's a catastrophe that has a different parameters, Because what is very interesting, one friend of mine, I want to comment, tell me that from Italy, I have my grandfather that did the First World War. And also my grandfather did the Second World War. And my father did the Second World War. And for me, that I am more than 60, I said, I don't live any war, but this seems to be a war, You have to rethink about that. Because what you don't say is the massive destruction, but the destruction is there in terms of society, capability, security, people, network, It's a destruction that is very complex at the global level. And it is very difficult to trade that. What Philippe said, we have to rethink. I don't know if Plan Brady completely different, because when the Plan Brady arrived, many of the people in Latin America was dead, arrived 10 years later. But to rethink something at the global level, it could be very important from G20 or G7 to rethink about that.
Let's see the next question coming from the Embassy of Paraguay. Do you think the gap that COVID-19 caused in the path to reduce poverty can be reduced with a regional Latin America strategy?
I think we need to think in two moments. First moment is to have an intervention now, because in the last 5 years, as Philippe said, and we showed that the growth of the economy was bad, the reduction of poverty stopped, the inequality began to increase, extreme poverty began to increase. That is before the crisis of COVID-19, okay? And you think clearly that today when this crisis arrived, okay, we have to make the enormous efforts that if the people go to the poverty, we have to have the instrument to support them. That is the short-term intervention. Some type of income for 6 months, global, I don't know, we have to rethink to resources, income to people that arrive, in monetary terms that the people can live on that. But at the same time, we need to rethink about the more important intervention on people, on access to ICT, but to sustain the production system. That is crucial. and to sustain production activity, because we need to incentivize creation of employment. Employment is a crucial variable. But to creation of employment, we need to rethink about what type of industry we need, okay? And this industry have to be supported, because we need domestic market and global market. That is an important issue. And I want to stop here. This in the long term, it's the short term to sustain income that people can access, that the diffusion of consumption has to be stopped. Preserve production capabilities, production structure, and to sustain with policy a new view of industrial development in the region. That is important. However, be careful. Global Latin American integration is important. Each country in the region thinks many times that by itself, each country can do whatever you want. And also Brazil, that is so large, is small in the world. You know, regional integration become more and more and more important. And because for Paraguay is crucial, the integration. For all of the country become integration. And we need, there is political difference in the region. But in this context, political difference cannot be the barrier, you know. The barrier has to be the no capability to reduce poverty and to create more industrial capability.
Thank you, Mario. The next question comes from George Cobell. A question to sustainability and structure of the market. What is the output of local machine manufacturers to supply the local mining on demand on non-imported machines, also like automobile sector, etc.? Thanks. Actually, it's from Jorge Cobell, not Cobell.
It's an important question. I want to say about that the following. That is, if I can give an answer to this question, is that we think that all of the production structure is going to be changing. Okay, when you read about how to change the production structure, you have to go to the firms, you have to go to the sector, because sector has a specificity, and firms are completely different among them. And when you go there, you understand that the entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur, change completely. When the crisis arrives, the entrepreneur understand immediately that they have to reduce cost because they don't have demand. They have to change production change because the production chains are changing. They have to maintain production capability, technological capability, because if they remain closed for a long time, the production capability is going to be reduced and other firms are going to take the space that they have. And what is changing is the production system from the microeconomy to the macro sector. And what we have to do in this context to understand the way how we came out in this process. I think one of the most important is to rethink that when the firm is reducing cost, we need to introduce policy where the firm can absorb new technologies in terms of clean technology, new ICT on the cars, electromobility, consolidation of local production change. We need that. This is the moment to rethink also the industrial policy. You know, we can wait 1 year and 6 months. When everything arrives in 6 years and 6 months or 1 year, everything is down. We need today to support with incentive these changes at the creation of a new industry. Is what, for example, Germany is doing about the electromobility. Is what Italy is doing about the policy of sustainability of each house and plan that sustain autonomy, energy for each house and industry. You know, we need policy today. We need policy incentive today, also in the region. It's important in the long term to have this view.
Next question from an anonymous viewer. What are going what is ECLAC doing to help the Latin American countries debate of rethinking policies?
Thank you for this question. I don't know how I say that. È una missione di Dio questa. ECLAC is our DNA, it's our life. We want to do that. Many times it's difficult. And I want to be very honest about that. There is a debate in Europe about how to change the policy. Many people have said that, also people that are very orthodox in this view. Our debate in the region is how to support this debate, and how this debate has to be installed in different countries. It's difficult because I want to be very honest on that. I think at the end of this crisis, is going to be two opposition, orthodox and more heterodox view. Orthodox, we say, no, leave the labor market like the labor market it is. Leave the market to move it in lightweight. And we are going to back to the old way to thinking. And we are going to reproduce the same crisis, the same process. I want to be introduced in some way. For example, no people is debating about competition policy. In this context for ICT, we have to debate about competition policy. Think about that. We are people here in Chile, in Europe is less because there is more policy. But here you have policy about you are in quarantine and you stay at your home and you call by the app, the service. When you go inside of the app, you go to the large supermarket, not the small firm. We want to develop a small firm, we need app that gives the opportunity to small firm to live their products. We need to create a competition policy to give more possibility to the small and medium firm. This is a new way to think about policy. We need policy to achieve that the industry can achieve a new technology in cooperation with countries like Switzerland. We need policy for that. We need policy to rethink about industrialization policy. This is a region where industrialization policy, no, there was ideological debate. People say, no, leave to the market. Please, come on. Tell me that Europe don't have industrial policy. Tell me that China don't have industrial policy. Tell me that Switzerland don't have industrial. Every country has industrial. Why Latin America don't have it? This is a ideological debate. We need industrial policy, efficient, but we need industrial policy. But it's an important debate, and cooperation had to be installed in industrial and technological policy. My friend, it's a new way to think. ECLAC is doing what ECLAC can do, that. And we have a lot of efforts on that. We have a good, our secretary, Alicia Bárcena, that does a lot on that, and I support in this. Maria, we are supporting that. And we try to say to the country, is the way, is the moment to change your view. This is a crisis where we can rethink in the same way.
A question from Gerardo Basurco. Do we need new institutions in the world to reform the economical and political world system?
It's a nice question. Yes, I think it's, of course. We have to rethink. We have to rethink a global institution. We need more multilateralism, but we need another type of multilateralism. The multilateralism we created in the 40s was for one condition. Today is completely different. We have to rethink the global institution. For example, we need an important institution in trade regulation and financial flows, and take evasion from financial flows, and to create policy, because trade don't create inequality around the world. We need institution with another view, with another look of thinking these processes. And this important for us, for ECLAC, is what is important to maintain, to support the multilateral action, and to support the multilateral institution, and support them, for example, with Agenda 2030. This is crucial, it's important, because there it has to be the horizon, but we need to rethink the way how to discuss, to elaborate policy and other things. I think, yes, the question is yes, we need to rethink about that, because, you know, the world is too small. We believe that it's too large, but it's too small. And we need to support it. It is important for us to be bright and rethink about new institutions to be coraggioso in that action to create a new way to think. And that's crucial, it's important. I think a multilateral action is crucial and important.
There is one more question from Mark Untersander. If he did not ask it, I would have asked it. Do you see any positive aspects in this crisis for Latin America?
My God, no. What is politically correct in this world is to say, after a crisis, something good coming. Okay, but I prefer don't have the crisis and to prove everything without crisis, if you want to be honest. But the society, our capitalists have crisis every total number of years. The economists forget to study the crisis, but the classical economists study the crisis a lot. Adam Smith, Ricardo, Marx, Hamilton, all of them study because there is crisis coming from one particular aspect, coming from the other. Crises are there, and the crisis is a dramatic impact. I think this crisis has an enormous impact. Honestly, we are very worried that in this moment it's affecting so large in Latin America. There is the pain of the people that is so difficult, you know. The only thing that I can say on that, the opportunity in this crisis is to rethink what didn't work, which are the new measures that we need, and to rethink a new completed process of introduction policy. I think that for me, if the country don't think that to have an important industrial structure and the social welfare system together working is a mistake. It's going to be this. The country have to rethink global, international, and multilateralism and supporting that. Countries have to be more cooperative in this crisis. Countries have to discuss from one side to the other the way to come together. And I think there is, of course, every time there is an opportunity, but to support this opportunity require to rethink policy. And when you have to rethink policy, you have to change the way to thinking. This is a global economy that is different for the other global economy. It's different for the crisis in the 300, in the 300, the famous crisis of the 300. You know, during 100 years, 1 century, during the crisis of the end of the Novecento and the beginning of the 14 and the recent crisis of every crisis is different. In this crisis, in something crisis change the way to do policies, change the way to rethink the world, and here is you have to rethink the world in completely different way. I think we have the only opportunity is to understand the history and to understand how to rethink that. And I think the most important variable is to reduce, to stop, to avoid inequality. That's my problem. If we can understand that this is a crucial variable, we can probably to have a new opportunity from this crisis. But however, it's a difficult one.
Yes, and in this slide, just to follow up on what Mario just said, I could only say that we may hope that this crisis will increase the solidarity between the people in Latin America from all social classes, because they are all affected and they all suffer, so that they will better understand the other social classes and therefore for the future build together their future. I think we have come to the end of the questions right now. So as a moderator, I would just like to thank you very much, Mario, for your excellent diagnosis of the Latin American situation, very realistic review of the policy responses, and now for more than half an hour, very good suggestion on where to go from here, what are the perspectives and what can be done and what should be done. I think this webinar has come up with a few suggestions in terms of what should be the way forward in Latin America, and also at a global level for the whole world. The challenges are very significant, the stakes are considerable, and the recovery will have to be based on inclusive growth, as you mentioned several times. This will be very important for the whole society to move forward and also to avoid, within some time to go, the type of social issues that have come up in Chile at the end of last year. Solidarity and cooperation will be of great importance. Finally, for our audience, I would like to point out that the website of the European Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean has very, very good studies, recent ones available, one on the economic impact of COVID-19 on Latin America and the Caribbean, a second one on employment situation in Latin America, and another one on Latin America and the Caribbean and the COVID-19 pandemic. They are all really worthwhile to read, with very well presented with graphs, and also they give an excellent complement to the presentation that Mario gave us today. Finally, my last word would be a happy birthday to you, Mario. You have your birthday today, and you spent so much time with us. It's really great. We are so grateful to you. Now it's lunchtime in Chile, so we wish you a great lunch, a wonderful dinner with your family tonight, and a good birthday cake, and also a good health and much happiness. And we look forward to have you back on our webinar in a year from now, so that we can again see where we stand and how what we have done and how we will further move forward. But again, great thanks from my side for your participation today. Thank you. And
thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, Diana, Philippe, my team, Maria, Alejandra. Thank you, all of you. It was a pleasure for me. Really, it was I like it because it was a very good debate. It was very openly, was very honest. It has some flavor of political incorrect that I like in this moment very much. And I want to say it was a very great amphitryon. Thank you to very much of you. And now I go to eat. I have gnocchi alla sorrentina that is prepared. That is not fun to have my birthday. Thank you very much, all of you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Mario, also from my side. And
Grazie.
This was a very powerful and passionate presentation. And thanks for giving us your assessment, which I'm sure was deeply appreciated by all our viewers. Thank you, Philippe, for once again your excellent preparation and competent moderation of this webinar. And then last but not least, big thanks to our audience from both sides of the Atlantic for watching and listening in today and asking so many questions. If you missed part of the session or would like someone else to see it as well, the recording will be posted on our website under past events by tomorrow. We are thrilled to be able to provide you with a platform for information and dialogue of such high quality, and are determined to do so in the future. Mario, once again, happy birthday, enjoy your day, and to all the rest of you, until next time, be safe and see you soon. Bye.
Gracias y a la próxima. Cariños a todos. Gracias.
Gracias, adiós.